Chapter 79, Freshman Class Assignment Test 3. Saint Clarice had two dreams. One while her eyes were open, and another while her eyes were closed. One dream was planted by the Archbishop Verjus, and the other by the romantic Adele. You must become akin to a blank sheet of paper. Quote, imagine an unshakable sea stretching beyond the horizon, Saint Clarice. Seek stillness, wide as the sea but silent as the absence of water's sound. Quote, under the grace of God telos, all are equal, and none should be taken lightly. We live to embody that belief. Quote, I firmly believe that true nobility stems from unwavering faith maintained throughout a lifetime. I have no doubt that nobility is endowed with invaluable worth that cannot be replaced by anything. Quote, Clarice was always taught by Verjus during the day. Next in line to the ruler of the holy city of Carpea, Verjus, as an exemplar of devotion to God, lived a life devoted to faith. The innocent lamb of Telos, Saint Clarice, herself felt ashamed of any personal failings in view of Verjus' sincere convictions. He was someone worthy of respect, someone who should be rewarded by God above all others. While steadfast in heart, he did not boast, always striving to listen with equality to even the weakest of voices. Thus Clarice dreamed, to remain as pure and untainted as the dazzling Verjus, living for Telos's will. In the life of a saint unsullied by even a speck of dirt, one who saves the faithful, lies a nobility unattainable by ordinary people. It is better to die in muddy waters than to live as a blank slate. Quote, living only looking at white walls and ceilings can cause one's vision to deteriorate. One can never truly understand the romance of a world filled with color until they experience it. Quote, at night, Clarice listened to Adele's mandolin by the window. Whenever the night was filled with stars, Adele would appear. The self-proclaimed romantic, Adele. Once a girl with dead eyes managing the holy flames of the order, she left the church for unknown reasons. With her hair braided and adorned with beautiful flowers, holding only her instrument, she roamed the world and became a wandering minstrel of romance. Learning archaeology in the land of scholars to crossing the continent with only her instrument, even attending magic school in Sylvania during term time, she would wander the world again come holiday. A girl as free as the coastal winds. Even this holy imperial city, heralded as mankind's most magnificent structure, is but a mere sandcastle before the bizarre rocks of the Rhymney Mountains. Musical note, will you be content with seeing the sky from the well, or will climb the wall to gaze upon the vast starry sea? Musical note, do you know there can be nobility in living an ordinary life, normally attending classes, mingling with friends, and falling in love? Millions of prayers from worshippers who admire me are not as valuable as the embrace from a beloved person. Quote, somehow, the girl sang beneath Clarice's window at night, navigating between buildings, atop the tallest layer of the grand holy imperial city. Angels who carry Telos's will are said to fly freely about the world wrapped in their splendid wings. Clarice had never seen an apostle of Telos, but she could imagine them as holy and noble with their majestic spread wings. However, before she went to bed, Clarice saw on Adele's back a pair of wings that fit snugly, visible only to her against the star-filled night sky. With her eyes closed, falling asleep, Clarice would dream. The Rhymney mountain region, Denkan marshlands, the imperial city of Chloron, the pastoral lands of Kulantian, the alchemical lands of Crete, the commercial city of Oldic, the educational lands of Sylvania, the great desert of Drestia, the lawless region of Cahelm. She would travel the vast lands she knew only from books until, eventually, at the end of her journey, she met someone. Their face unknown, their body, personality, all a mystery to Clarice, for they were completely unfamiliar. At the end of it all, Clarice embraced someone deeply and walked the once lonely journey together. A journey filled with a vivid melange of colors, a stark contrast to a life of only pristine white. Burying her face in her pillow, she indulged in her most audacious fantasies. Asterisk. Oof, I'm starting to run out of breath, I need to pace myself. The exam proceeded efficiently. After all, nothing was too challenging. Scattered throughout the mountain were various types of magic stones to be found and offered at the summit's altar. The altar of substitution, once given a magic stone, converts it into magical energy that seeps into the owner's body, which then serves as a proof of passing. Magic extracted from natural sources, unlike that formed naturally within the body, carries a distinctive aura. It's difficult to wield such foreign magic as one's own, but that detail was inconsequential. What mattered was to absorb the magic and display it in front of the examiners. Tanya weaved through the underbrush, taking deep breaths. Concentration piercing through her brows, she could sense the residual magical energy around her. More than 30 minutes had elapsed since the start of the exam. Long gone were the students who had bolted in fear of a first-come first-served basis, by now reaching the mountain's mid-slopes. They were in a fervent rush to find one stone after another, sprinting towards the peak to avoid falling behind. The front-runners amongst this year's new magic department entrants were the well-known pair, Agui and Joseph. It seemed they felt a strange competitive spirit towards each other. Too many. Single quote. Tanya, slowly crossing through the trees, had already accumulated several magic stones. Just offering magic stones to the altar can't be everything. There must be something in place to differentiate the students further. Single quote. Without draining her stamina, Tanya ascended the mountain at her own pace, keenly observing her surroundings. Winter mountains are treacherous. Rush and trip, injure oneself, and it's only one's own loss. It's likely something lies in wait further up the mountain. There's no reason to clamber to reach the podium first. It makes sense to maintain a mid-ranking climb, watching carefully for any prepared trials and advancing judiciously. These school uniforms are tight, few. Resting briefly on a nearby rock and gasping for air, Tanya reflected that it's been months since she looked forward to enrolling at Sylvania. As a noblewoman, she always maintained proper conduct, but human desires are endless. Even with constant attention to her figure, ordering a school uniform one size too small had been a moment of imprudence. With no superfluous weight to lose, it felt like excessive ambition. In the end, Tanya took a breather seated on the rock. She never had much faith in her stamina. Although the mountain wasn't particularly high, the myriad branching paths made it easy to lose one's way. Despite this, the general direction towards the peak is unmistakable: simply move upwards along the slope. As a spiderweb of pathways unwinds, it seems everyone has found their own way to navigate through, evidenced by occasional screams echoing from the mid-slope. Clearly, something was prepared beyond the midpoint. Maybe I should head towards the source of that scream. If it's a sign of trouble, I might get a chance to see what's in store. As Tanya sorted her thoughts, a glimpse caught her eye far off in the distance. A small figure slumped beneath an old tree. Her dark brown hair and crimson eyes looked uncomfortable together, like oil repelling water. Pulling down her socks and stroking her sleek legs, it seemed as though she was hurt. Wondering if she was injured, Tanya promptly stood and approached the girl. "Are you hurt?" Like all freshmen, she donned the tidy Sylvania uniform. Her most distinctive feature was her dark brown hair, curling inward around her waist. The sheen alone spoke of careful maintenance. In Sylvania, wealthy children were plentiful enough to be tripping over. Suddenly addressed by Tanya, the girl merely stared blankly back. Though Tanya had ventured to ask out of concern, she received only tepid response. It's as though something was missing, a strange dullness about her. "If you're injured, I'll call for a staff member." Quote. "Ah, me, yes. You're holding up your leg, is it sprained?" "No, it's not that. I just wanted to step on the snow barefoot." Quote. What? Tanya had a fleeting intuition. This girl was not of sound mind. There was something off-kilter about her, as if she'd float away like cotton candy in the wind. "There's so much snow. I thought it would feel good to step on it barefoot." Quote. Suddenly, right here, is that not allowed? Is it not normal? Of course, it's far from normal, but explaining in length seemed futile, so Tanya stayed silent. Without heed, the girl shed her flats and stuck her pale feet into the snow, shivering then moaning with perceived delight. It was as if she'd never felt snow before. "Cold. Well, it's snow. Look at this." My feet got wet. That's because you burrowed them in snow. Indulging the absurdity with factual retorts, the girl blinked then slowly nodded as if realizing something. He nodded. It was difficult not to first wonder if this person had a mental issue. However, the fact that she was wearing the Sylvania Academy uniform meant she was at least a new student who had proven her abilities. As Tanya stood in bewilderment for a moment, the girl finally realized how she looked and waved her arms. Ah, this was one of the things on my wish list. Walking through a snowfield barefoot. Quote, a wish list. Yes, since I've never been in a position to do such things, I've only ever imagined it while looking at the snow outside the window. It's softer than I thought. Quote, her smiling eyes were divine, a warmth that was seemingly too mature for her age shining through. After saying this, she shook the snow off her red, bare feet, which had quickly turned a stark white just like the falling snowflakes. Tanya cleared her throat and straightened her posture, then closed her eyes and spoke softly in a clear voice. As much as I question the timing of such a carefree introduction during an exam, my name is Tanya, the second daughter of the Roth-Taylor family. It seems we are classmates. Quote, normally, such an introduction was enough to make most bow their heads deeply. It was Sylvania Academy after all. One might not expect formal deference, but at the very least, no one would make a mistake in front of her. With that, Tanya gave an old-fashioned smile. The modest-looking girl before her should have recognized the name Roth-Taylor and bowed politely. Tanya somewhat expected that reaction. But what to say? The girl instead clapped her hands happily. The Roth-Taylor family. She raised her voice with joy, then quickly composed herself when she realized she was too loud. That's right, if you're from the Roth-Taylor family, I come from a remote region, so, I guess I should show respect, right? So, it's fine. In Sylvania, where all the renowned figures gather, if I'm the only one fussing over such formalities, I'd surely stand out as needlessly fussy. Quote, is that so? Well, yes, this is Sylvania, after all. Her innocent nodding with hands pressed together was endearing. Tanya looked at the girl intently for a moment, then nodded herself. It seemed she had a rough understanding of the situation. Since the girl claimed to come from the borderlands, the social lead was Tanya's to take. I am Kylie Eckner. I come from a small city-state in the Eastern Tyrrhene Duchy. I've been sheltered and don't know much about the ways of the world. If I ever do something foolish, I apologize in advance. I'm not too familiar with places like this. Tanya, puffing out her chest, spoke with pride and confidence. Don't worry about it. Although I haven't been in Sylvania for long, I arrived early and have already got a feel for the atmosphere. Quote, really, I'm truly clueless. I've tried to learn, but there's only so much I can do. That won't do, Tanya spoke firmly. Crossing her arms dramatically, she lectured as if teaching a lesson. Did you say your name was Kylie? Since we're classmates, may I speak informally? Of course. Quote ellipsis quote. To consider informal speech such a big deal, she spoke as if challenging Tanya to a test with a radiant smile. Tanya couldn't help thinking, what an odd person, but decided to just go with it. Sylvania is full of talented individuals, and also students of such high status that one must not be reckless in dealing with them. If you're not careful, you could end up in big trouble. Quote, why yes, that makes sense. Quote, it's not just about making sense. Kylie's carefree attitude did not sit well with Tanya. You're going to wait until you offend someone like a princess or a saintess with your brazen familiarity before you come to your senses. Could that really happen? To be exact, even someone like me, no, let's just leave it there. Tanya felt uneasy even as she stood there, finding it hard to believe that Kylie would respond so casually despite knowing she was in the presence of a Roth-Taylor. Remember, even though scholastic virtue always comes first in Sylvania, there are those of such high birth that they could break even those unspoken rules. Don't let your guard down. If something happens, it'll be you who suffers. Quote, I see, I'll keep that in mind. You're concerned for me, aren't you? See concern, you say. Tanya felt rather exasperated looking at Kylie maintaining a relaxed attitude even after such a frank warning. Miss Tanya is truly kind. To worry and give sincere advice to someone you just met like me. Stop it, you're making me blush. Anyway, we shouldn't be talking here, we need to get back to the exam. That's right, it's in the middle of the exam. More of the same response, again and again. Tanya had met many bold people before, but never someone with such a complete lack of tension. She sighed heavily after a moment of introspection. I'm not too concerned about getting high grades, it would just draw unnecessary attention to get into a class like A. What does it matter if you stand out, and if you aren't ambitious about learning, why even come to Sylvania? Sure, I am ambitious about learning, but doesn't it seem more diligent to start from the bottom and work my way up? If you think so, there's not much more I can say. Tanya felt like a deep sigh could cause the earth itself to cave in. She started to think it was time to go about her business. I don't think that way, I need to make it to the top. Quote, yeah, Kylie nodded vigorously and then suddenly grasped Tanya's hand. Then I'll join you. Quote, I thought you weren't too bothered about exams. Quote, well, that's true but. Kylie hesitated, then confessed as if forcing out a secret. It's my first time making a friend my age. Quote, truly, given her actions, it wasn't surprising she didn't have friends. Tanya had to forcefully restrain herself from making a harsh retort. I might not be interested in the exams, but I'll help you with yours, Miss Tanya. Quote, maybe that way, our relationship can become special and stronger, you see. How socially inept could one be to make such an effort for a single friend? Just the thought was giving Tanya a headache. She stared hard at Kylie for a long time. Did Kylie behave so comfortably even knowing she stood before a Roththaler lady? A reminder of the difference in status seemed necessary, but Tanya found herself unable to solidify her resolve due to the strangely malleable atmosphere. She felt it pitiful and considered showing some undeserved kindness. Kylie was a peculiar person. Asterisk. The semester placement exam had clear content and a definitive time limit. The faster conclusion desired by Assistant Professor Claire was perhaps the main reason, but this was of no concern to the students. Almost an hour into the exam, yet near the summit altar, there were no students in sight. Clavius swallowed nervously. Perhaps he would end up just standing guard and returning without incident. Clutching at that small hope. I thought I was a goner. I've made it. Bursting through the midway barrier of enchanted equipment on the mountain, the first freshman reached the entrance of the altar. A young boy with a short blush of red in his hair, glasses perched on his small nose, and a stature that was short even for a male. The heir to the Rokan mercenaries, Agui. He had the capacity to rank high among the first-year magic division, despite his appearance. Just die. Cough. In panic, Clavius grabbed his sheathed sword and swung it wildly, knocking Agui down with a sound like a pig being butchered. Having just escaped the phantoms, Agui was unprepared for the assault. Quote, Agui wasn't hit at a vital spot, but for a freshman worn out from battling illusions, any hit was overwhelming. As Agui lay unconscious, Clavius caught his breath in terror. Damn it, why suddenly appear like that? Question mark. Really? A tragic situation, indeed. Agui's only fault was being there. It's easier than I expected. Clavius wondered if he could simply ambush all the students that made it up and subdue them. Unfair to the students, certainly, but perhaps he could claim it tested their adaptive response in crisis. Admittance to Sylvania's A division was no trivial matter after all. Anyone intending to join, even if only a prospective second-year member, should reasonably be able to handle such a challenge. With that self-victory, Clavius clenched his fists. This might be cowardly, shameful and unworthy for a senior. But what can you do? Let's keep going. Boom. Yet, as if defying Clavius's hopes, an explosive noise erupted from the altar's north entrance. The north entrance, which Anise was guarding, had been breached. If you want to have more videos like this, then like and subscribe to my channel, and have a nice day or evening or night. I will see you soon.